Welcome back to class, everybody. My name is Ethan from the weebologypodcast, and today I'm going to be trying to do something a little special. I'm going to do a 5-minute review of Brand New Animal, a 2020 Netflix original anime by Studio Trigger. I'm going to talk about what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and then hopefully kind of an overall kind of whether you should watch it or not and give it a rating. So here we go. First off, I want to say a couple things I really loved about it. The aesthetic was unbelievably beautiful. I could not get a freaking enough of it. It's got this very 80s feel, very Miami feel, if that makes sense. A lot of dark purples, reds, kind of yellows, kind of that Team Summertime type color scheme that you might know from different Miami type vibes. The soundtrack was unbelievable. Had very 80s. Obviously, same, it's kind of same deal. 80s upbeat, sort of nostalgic sound. I actually felt myself thinking of Stranger Things soundtrack very many times throughout watching this. Just kind of like that, synth wave almost 80s music. I first of all, huge fan of that music in general, so I was gonna love it regardless. But just especially with this show and the aesthetic and matching those two together, it worked really well. And then the third thing, which is the art and animation, which I think is going to be a little controversial. I think a lot of people are not going to vibe with this art style very, very much. I think it's different from Trigger's, other forays. And to me, this honestly did feel more like a Western kind of DC animation, Warner Brothers animation. It actually had really strong Batman Beyond vibes, if you can believe it. But actually in multiple scenes, I was like, this could be ripped straight out of Batman Beyond, other than obviously the subject material. Okay, so for the bad portion of this show, I think the cast was extremely non-dynamic. Michiru was the only character I cared about at all. The rest of them were kind of wet blankets or didn't really add a lot to the overall story. Secondly, I think the plot was pretty weak. Pretty much we got all exposition and conflict in the last episode or last two. So basically they gave us the entire conflict and resolution within 1.5 episodes. So what you ask, did the other 10 episodes provide? I'm not really sure. I guess it's a feel-good attitude and a good, feeling, and maybe trying to fit in a new city type deal. The antagonist was pretty weak as well. I think very clearly the antagonist from the very beginning. Also, White Wolf or Silver Wolf, also extremely obvious who that was from the very beginning. My two favorite episodes were actually episode 5 and episode 12. Episode 5 was a baseball episode, pretty fun, kind of broke up the monotony of the very slow start. Very boring overall show until the very last episode, which makes it my favorite episode because basically everything happened. All the animation budget went, into that one episode. All the conflict occurred, and also the resolution. So it was pretty jam-packed episode. Started really sick fights and stuff like that in that episode. So really, really happy with that episode. So overall, my rating is going to be a 6.5 out of 10. I think this is really a show where you turn off your brain, you just kind of watch it. Do not think too deep, or you will be disappointed. And I've got a couple other things to say really fast. I think the final episode was a little whack because all of a sudden they started talking about half-bloods, pure-bloods, stuff like that. But that was the only time they had mentioned it in the entire show. So basically, when you come up, start a plot point like that at the very end, I don't really understand what you're really going for here. There was already enough kind of conflict between beastmen and humans that they could have kind of gotten away with that. But then they started this whole Harry Potter-esque half-blood, pure-blood type deal. And then the last thing was this Near-Vassell syndrome was straight up ripped out from the Aruma-kun, Welcome to Demon School, where demons basically get agitated and then go wild. And the only way to deal with that is stress relief. And that was a big crux of this show. And I thought it was pretty whack. But overall, I think, give it a shot. I doubt you'll love it unless you really like the aesthetic, because I think it really, really relies on the aesthetic. And honestly, it carries it to a 6.5 in my opinion. All right, guys. See you later. Peace.